DEFCON 1, exercise term, cocked pistol. That phrase is worth pausing on before anything else. Cocked pistol is not the name of the war. It is the name used in drills and tests so that practice traffic is never mistaken for the real thing. The most famous phrase in the whole system is a rehearsal word. The Joint Chiefs of Staff defined the level itself in a memorandum titled Uniform Readiness Conditions, signed in August of 1959. Maximum readiness, the highest state of military preparedness the system describes. There is no confirmed instance of it ever being ordered. Not during the Cuban Missile Crisis, not during the October War in 1973, not on the 11th of September 2001. In more than 60 years, DEFCON 1 has never been ordered as an operational readiness condition. The stranger part is how the memorandum said it would work. The 1959 document does not make a presidential order the starting point. It describes what happens when a commander declared DEFCON 1. The Joint Chiefs then request that the president join a conference with the chiefs and the Secretary of Defense. The purpose is to review the situation and consider immediate actions, including relocating the national command authorities. Read that sequence again. Under the 1959 procedure, a commander could declare maximum readiness, and the Joint Chiefs would then go and bring the president into the room. There was also a training posture that most published DEFCON charts leave out entirely. Strategic Air Command rehearsed something called DEFCON 1S, a deliberately less severe variant of maximum readiness. Its specific requirements are still classified. What did surface in a declassified Air Force study of the alert system is what the rehearsal looked like. Bombers with their engines shut down, parked as close to the runway as physically possible. The first 4 aircraft kept powered up, with a pilot and 1 crew member living inside the cockpit in 12-hour shifts. The remaining crews housed in trailers next to a klaxon. Men slept in the cockpits, rehearsing for a condition that has never been ordered. DEFCON 2, exercise term, fast pace. The Joint Chiefs described it flatly. A further increase in force readiness, which is less than maximum readiness. One step below the level that has never happened. It has happened once. On the 24th of October, 1962, Strategic Air Command went to DEFCON 2. Every other part of the Cuban Missile Crisis is famous. This part is usually compressed into a single line, and 2 details get lost in the compression. The first detail is the scale of it. Strategic Air Command's own classified history, declassified decades later, put numbers on the alert. An hour was declared for 1400 Zulu, the base time for bringing forces to readiness to execute the nuclear war plan. Within a day, the command had 1436 bombers on alert, 145 intercontinental ballistic missiles, roughly 2,900 nuclear weapons made ready against Soviet targets. 65 nuclear-armed B-52s stayed in the air at any given moment, the largest airborne alert Strategic Air Command ever flew. And the emphasis, according to the men writing the history, was on reaching that state of readiness quietly. The approval did not look like a movie either. The order came out of an agreement between the Air Force Chief of Staff and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Copies went to the White House and the Secretary of Defense. A National Security Council staffer working the night shift in the Situation Room read the message. He phoned the Deputy Secretary of Defense and was told that he and the Secretary of Defense had already approved it. Only then did the message reach Kennedy, who approved it as well. The highest alert level American forces have ever reached traveled to the President through a duty officer on a night desk. The second detail is how long it lasted. The crisis is remembered as 13 days, and the alert often gets described the same way. Strategic Air Command stayed at DEFCON 2 until the 21st of November, roughly 4 weeks. Kennedy had announced the Soviet climb down at the end of October. The bombers came off that posture more than 3 weeks after the headlines moved on. DEFCON 3, exercise term, roundhouse. An increase in force readiness above what normal readiness requires. On paper, it reads like the middle of the scale. For worldwide American alerts since 1962, it has been the ceiling. Every documented worldwide DEFCON in that period has stopped here. The first one was triggered by a crisis, not a war. In May of 1960, the Paris summit collapsed. An American U-2 spy plane had been shot down over Soviet territory. The Soviet premier walked out of the talks. Secretary of Defense Thomas Gates instructed the Joint Chiefs to quietly raise the state of military vigilance and to prepare to go higher if directed. The Chiefs translated that instruction into DEFCON 3. 1/3 of the bomber and tanker force went on to ground alert, months ahead of schedule. Then 2 things happened that are difficult to read without discomfort. The Deputy Secretary of Defense reported back that every American command was now at DEFCON 3 and prepared to go higher. Then he asked Gates to explain the basis for his own instruction. And when the Joint Chiefs sent word to the Canadian Chiefs of Staff, the message reflected a simple fact. The Joint Chiefs did not know why the order had been given. Reporters noticed. The Pentagon told them the Joint Chiefs had completed a worldwide communications readiness test, The second worldwide DEFCON came 13 years later, on the night of the 24th of October, 1973. During the war between Israel and its neighbors, the Soviet leaders sent a letter threatening to act alone in Egypt. Henry Kissinger, acting largely on his own authority with Nixon consumed by Watergate, decided to answer it with forced posture. At 11:41 that night, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs ordered American commands to DEFCON 3. The missile force barely moved because almost all of it was already on alert. Before the order, 98.9% of the required intercontinental ballistic missile force was sitting ready. After DEFCON 3 took hold, that figure reached 99.5%. 0.6 of a percentage point? That is what the highest worldwide DEFCON of the decade added to the missile force. Kissinger had expected it to stay quiet. It became a major news story within hours. DEFCON 3 has also been ordered locally for one theater at a time. In August of 1976, North Korean soldiers killed 2 American Army officers, Captain Arthur Boniface and Lieutenant Mark Barrett, with axes at a tree in the Korean demilitarized zone. American forces in South Korea went to DEFCON 3. The response was not a strike. Engineers went back with an escort and cut the tree down. 3 years later, after President Park Chung-hee was assassinated, American forces in Korea went to DEFCON 3 again. The last worldwide one is the most recent. According to the 9/11 Commission report, the Secretary of Defense directed the nation's armed forces to Defense Condition 3 after the attacks of the 11th of September 2001, not the President. The Secretary of Defense. DEFCON 4. Exercise term, double take. Increased intelligence watch and strengthened security measures. Above normal readiness. It is a level nobody can name, and the documented record suggests why. In the crises that are public, DEFCON 4 shows up far more often as the level forces return to than the level they passed through on the way up. When the 1973 alert ended, Strategic Air Command dropped back to DEFCON 4. When the Korean crisis of 1976 wound down, American forces in South Korea returned to DEFCON 4 on the 7th of September, and the bomber flights stopped the following day. Read across those cases, the scale does not behave like 5 realms of crisis, climbs one at a time. Peacetime sits at the bottom, crises push into 3, and 4 is where things settle on the way back down. That is a reading of the documented cases, not a rule written into the system. DEFCON 5. Exercise term fade out, the lowest state of operational readiness. The least dangerous level on the scale. Declassified records describe it as the normal peacetime condition, the posture that can be sustained indefinitely. What cannot be established is the number right now. The Department of Defense does not announce DEFCON levels. There is no public figure, which means nobody outside the system can confirm what condition American forces are in today. There's a second problem, and it is structural. The 1959 memorandum allowed commanders to change their own DEF consultation with the Joint Chiefs. That is not a loophole. That is the design. It is why Navy task groups in the South China Sea could sit at DEFCON 3 during a crisis in Laos in December of 1960, without a worldwide alert being ordered. It is why American forces in Korea could go to 3 twice without the rest of the force following them up the scale. Different commands can hold different DEFCON levels at the same time. So even the question most people ask, what DEFCON is America at, assumes a single national number the system was never built to produce. One more correction, because it cuts against the story most people know. The 1983 exercise called Able Archer is often described as the closest the world came to nuclear war after Cuba. Soviet leaders and intelligence officers did react to it with serious alarm, and historians still disagree about how dangerous that moment really was. But on the American side, the declassified record shows nuclear forces sitting at ordinary alert levels throughout. No DEFCON escalation was ordered. Whatever Moscow believed was happening, Washington was not moving the bombers. One reason the word became public vocabulary at all is a film. War Games, released in 1983, put DEFCON into ordinary speech, and it used the scale correctly, counting down from 5 toward 1 as the machine escalated. 10 years after that, an 18-year-old named Jeff Moss threw a party in Las Vegas for a friend who never showed up. He invited every hacker he knew instead. He named it DEFCON, partly after the alert system in the film, partly because, on a telephone keypad, the letters D, E, and F sit on the number 3. The websites that publish a current DEFCON level are not official. They cannot be. The number is not released. So the scale reads differently once the record is laid over it. The most dangerous level has never been ordered, and the founding memorandum described it being declared from below. The one that came closest lasted 4 weeks rather than 13 days, and reached the president through a night duty officer. The one in the middle is the highest worldwide level reached since 1962, and it has been triggered by a summit walkout, a letter, an axe, and an assassination. And the least dangerous level is the one the public can never confirm the country is in right now.